Every town has a ghost story that's been passed down through the generations. But what if those legends were true? My name is Miranda Young, and I'm the Ghost Biker. Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday night. Happy first week of May. I can't believe here we are on May 2nd, and we are here live at the historic Scott County Jail. Hopefully soon we're going to be back in the Ghost Biker Garage, but in the meantime, I am in the process. I feel like I've been moving in for the last year, but I'm trying to get a good space up and settled. But in the meantime, we're here. You never know what might happen here at the jail. If you tuned in last week, I had Mr. Bob Burnell and Karen Ann Daniels on the show. We had a great show. We highlighted some of their evidence, and we kind of had to jump off a little bit quickly because we did have a guided ghost hunt that was taking place last week. But I'm going to definitely have to have them back on because some of the evidence that they allowed me to share was just top notch, and I would really enjoy talking to them a little bit more about it. So thank you all so much that tuned in last week. If you also tuned in the last hour, we were here at the jail and we talked to Blaine with the Old Jail Museum in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. We were back on our series talking about old jails, and that was such a fun show. So if you enjoy learning about other jails and the things we've got going on here at the historic Scott County Jail, you can go on there and you can find it on the historic Scott County Jail, hello Sally, Facebook page and YouTube channel. And you can also find it on the historic Rugby After Dark page. But I want to say hello to some of the folks over here in the chat room. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you to those that tune in every week and share the show out. We wouldn't have the show if it wasn't for you. And so I just want to say hello to Miss Sonia Thompson from down in North Georgia, Mr. Daryl Paulette with the Clover Hill Village in Bedford Paranormal, Mr. Ronnie Anderson from Bedford Paranormal over in Virginia there. Hello, Mr. Brad Potter. You got to get in here and do an investigation. I know you came and did a flashlight tour. I'd be interested to see what you guys get on an investigation over here. David Lau, hello to you. And Miss Sheila Cox. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have a question tonight for myself or my guest, if you would, make sure to put them in all caps because I want to make sure that we don't miss, any questions or anything that we've got going on here. A lot of comments popping in. Hello to Angie. Hello to Ryan, friends with Sean. Thank you so much for watching. And hello to Miss Janet Alms from all the way out in Arizona. First off, you want to get to a little bit of business here before we get to tonight's guest. I want to say thank you to everyone that sent me birthday wishes this week. I was very, very touched and honestly overwhelmed by the kind messages, the cards, the phone calls, the Facebook posts. Thank you so much. It was amazing. And of course, I started off my 44th trip around the sun with some type of funk and getting over the crud here. So bear with me tonight as we go throughout the show. If I get to where you can't understand me, or if I start coughing, I'm just going to mute it. But yeah, trying to get over this crud. Also, so I want to make sure to mention if you've been following all the stuff that we've been doing. We actually make sure I pull up the right thing here. This Saturday, we're going to be, we've been talking about this a little bit. This Saturday, we're going to be over at the Village of Historic Rugby, which is 20 miles from here at the jail. They're going to be having their annual British Festival. And so this is so much fun. It's a 2-day event. It is a rain or shine event, and it takes place throughout the entire village of Rugby. We're going to have a table set up there with Historic Rugby After Dark. We're going to have jail paranormal merchandise. We're also going to have historic rugby after dark merchandise, and we're going to be signing people up for guided ghost hunts, lantern tours, and private paranormal investigations right there on the spot. So we're going to be situated right there by the visitor center. So if you are here in East Tennessee, or if you're going to be traveling to the area, Southern Kentucky, or even Southeastern Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, come on over, see us there in Rugby, and check out all the festivities that they've got going on. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Also, want to make sure, let me get this keyed up as well. I know a lot of you, you've heard me talk about it over the years. This is actually our third year, but we have a scholarship that my mom and I started here, and we partnered with the Widow Sons Masonic Writers Association, and we created a scholarship in my dad's name. It's the Harold Young Memorial Scholarship. And this is our third year of being able to give this out. This scholarship goes to a Scott High School student who is majoring in the field of science. And so this year, in fact, this morning, I was invited, my mom and I were invited over there to the high school, and we were able to give this year's student the scholarship. The scholarship is $1,000, and like I said, it goes to someone who's majoring in the field of science. This year's winner is Jessica Valadares, and she is majoring in biology. She's going to be going to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and she is going to be majoring in biology and then furthering her career and going into pre-med with hopes of becoming a surgeon. And so there's a lot of different qualifications that we look at, GPA, they write an essay. We also look at the need of the student. And, my dad, something that was really important to him was creating an opportunity for all students. And, with Scott County being one of the distressed counties here in Tennessee, it's something that's really important to these students. And I know every year we do a dart run for this. And this year we're doing something a little bit different. We've not announced what that is yet, but we'll be announcing that here very soon. But we were honored to be able to give this year's winner a $1,000 scholarship. And so we presented that to her this morning. And we're proud of the accomplishments that she's made, and congratulate her and look forward to seeing how things go with that. But I want to thank you all, because I know a lot of you have either participated in the dart run or you have sent in donations. And so this scholarship would not be possible without you guys. So we really do appreciate that. And it really is an honor to be able to do that in my dad's name. It's something that he would have really, it was really important to him. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that and to say, be on the lookout for different things that we're going to be mentioning or doing, because this is an ongoing scholarship where we do accept money throughout the year. The other thing that's going on that I want to make sure to mention here is, excuse me, it's the Paranormal Places meet and greet, and it's going to take place on Saturday, May 18th, which, wow, I guess is next. Yeah, it's coming up really, really quick here. So Saturday, May 18th, it's going to take place from 3:30 p.m. Central Time to 7 p.m. And it's going to take place over in Franklin, Kentucky at the Old Stone Jail, or the Franklin, Kentucky Historic Society. It's being put on by Elite Vixen Paranormal and Vicki Norris of Reflections of the Paranormal. And we are absolutely honored to be a part of this. My business partner, Dr. Christy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal, excuse me, and I will be there representing the historic Scott County Jail and historic Rugby After Dark. I'll be speaking about the jail. Christy will be speaking about rugby. And I know that Ronnie D with Harriman Hospital and Old South Pitt are going to be there. Bear from Octagon Hall, just to name a few. I mean, there's going to be a lot of folks that are there. This is going to be a very, very fun event. And excuse me. what's going to be really cool about this is this meet and greet is all paranormal places. So we're really excited about this and to be a part of it. I think I'm about to lose my voice. So let me just mute this just a second. I am so sorry. I'm losing my voice here. I'm going to go ahead and pull tonight's guest on and let him start introducing himself, because I worry I'm going to lose my voice if I'm not careful. So if you will, please help me in welcoming Mr. Sean Young.
Hi, Miranda.
Sean.
No need to apologize. I understand. It's all good.
As I collect myself, please go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Okay, so my name is Sean Young. I am a man of many hats. I'm wearing a hat right now, but I'm a man of many hats. I am a podcaster. I have two shows. One is called Recover Out Loud, and the other is called Beyond the Veil. And I got the pleasure of meeting Miranda and Christy on either one of my shows. I am also a U.S. Army veteran, served 12 and a half years in the Army, got medically retired for traumatic brain injury, which is just a big medical terminology for concussions, a lot of them. And I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been sober for 4 years, which has brought me on all kinds of wild adventures to where I'm at now. I am a shaman healer in training, also a life coach in training, and a medium in training. And after all my training's over, I'm going to be stepping into the role of Reiki. So I'm doing a lot right now, but it's from my perspective and from the perspective of people like us, it's needed.
Absolutely. So first off, I echo everyone's sentiment and say thank you for your service. We love having veterans on the show, and so we really appreciate that. And I'm really looking forward, because you and I talked a little bit before the show, and I got to say, I love your positivity and your outlook. I mean, that's so refreshing and something you don't see a lot now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I go into that, thank you for your support, Miranda, and everybody in the comments. Thank you for your support. I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done without the support of everybody behind us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we we had the honor of meeting, I guess it was last year, and I really enjoyed doing your show. And let's talk a little bit about Beyond the Veil podcast. And what got you started doing this podcast and covering the paranormal?
So I've always kind of believed in the paranormal. I grew up in Sharpsburg, Maryland, which is the home of the Antietam battlefield from the Civil War. And so it's rich in history. I love history. And I've had some experiences when I was younger, and I've had experiences when I was a teenager leading up into my adult years all over the world. And I got to this point where, with my recovery stuff that I do for my other podcast during October, I want to put out different content, something that is a break away from the serious stuff of recovery and mental health, and focus more on some of the more abstract, abnormal things in our world. And 2022, I wanted to do this, and I started doing it, but it didn't catch for me. I kind of fell a little bit shy of where I wanted to be. So I gathered myself up, and last year I did it again, but I did it with intention and with a goal in mind of specific guests, right? Like, I wanted it to lead to something. And it started out with my buddy who's a podcaster, and he shared his paranormal experiences. And then it led into a psychic medium that I'm a friend with in North Carolina. Then it led into Christy. And then it led into Sean Austin, who's a demonologist, amazing human being, beautiful human being. And then it led into, and my wildest dreams came true, was a Catholic exorcist.
Oh, wow.
And that the series of interviews that I did for my other show, my primary show, really started solidifying like how I felt about the paranormal and started piquing my interest again. I've always lived, like I said, I've always been intrigued by the paranormal. And then when The Exorcist was speaking to me, I felt really comfortable, right? Like I'm not going to dive into religion, but like I
Sure.
don't necessarily believe in God.
Okay.
And I let him know that after the recording. I said, "Look, I appreciate what you did. I just want you to know, like, I don't believe in God." And he sat and talked with me as a human being, not as an authoritarian figure, but as a human being. And when I explained why I don't, he said, "That's understandable." He's like, "You're not so far off from other people." And I, for one moment, and I guess for a little bit of time, I felt like I was humanized by somebody of a stature that people look at and make movies about. And I
Yeah.
was, and for me, I was extremely humbled by that. And in the process of getting all my guests that I had for that portion of time, there were so many more that reached out and said, "I want to share my story." And I said, "Well, if there was a calling for this and people want to share their story, who am I to stop this, right? Like, who am I? I am a person that I love to hear stories, and I'm a
Mhm.
storyteller myself. So why not start a show about it?" And so Beyond the Veil was created with a pretty much like a fire lit under me. I had like a supernatural paranormal fire lit under me, and it's been amazing. I've met amazing human beings like yourself, and and I've met just the most astounding people that you would just walk down the street and you look and be like, "Oh, that's just a normal human being," but they have something extraordinary about them.
Yeah. And, your podcasts are phenomenal. You are a very good storyteller. And, you make people feel at ease when you're talking to them. And it's kind of like your conversation style makes you feel like you've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, I highly recommend you check out, and we've got the links. We're going to be pulling them up during the show, but I highly recommend folks in the chat room, if you're looking for another great podcast to check out, you definitely have to check out Sean's podcast because he has had some wonderful people. And I love what you said there about The Exorcist, about the fact that he listened to what you had to say. And I think, especially in the world today where everyone feels like their opinion is the correct opinion, and if you differ, you're wrong from how they feel. I can only imagine how that made you feel that he kind of validated you in a way.
Oh, absolutely. When before I even said anything, I had knots in my stomach because I'm a person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and for anybody that doesn't necessarily know me, I'm a very emotional person. I haven't always been this way, but I'm an emotional person, and it's taken years to unlock that part of me. And so when I opened up, it was like here's my heart, don't break it. And he met me with such compassion. I I'm not even joking when I say I left that recording and I sat on my couch for about an hour contemplating what just happened. And
Wow.
I'm still friends with the pastor that I grew up with in town here. And I called him and I said, "I don't know what to think. I don't know what to believe." And he was like, "Believe what you want." He's like, "It nobody can tell you what to believe."
Yeah.
And that shook me too. But like it was just like a series of synchronicities that were happening, and I was just dumbfounded by the answers that I was receiving, and it was amazing. But I felt really humanized, and when I put his episode out, it was a Halloween episode. When I put his episode out, I sent him the link, and I sent him an email and said, "Hey, I appreciate you being a guest, and I just want to let you know the effect that you had on me." And his response was, "I had a great time. Amazing conversation. If I'm ever in the area, I'd love to meet you."
Oh,
And I was like, wow, that is
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And see, that's That's truly one of the best things about doing the podcast, because I know, just speaking for myself, I started doing my show, my investigation show, before I started podcasting. The
Mhm.
podcasting really kind of came out of the 2020, lockdown situation, looking for content and trying to create more content too. And the best part coming out of it has been the friends I've met, the things I've learned. And I feel like on a show, if I can form a connection or at least learn something, one thing from a guest, then, or at least pass on to someone else and create a connection between somebody else, either in the audience or with the guest, then I've done my job and it's all worth it at that point, you know?
Absolutely. I believe
Yeah.
that every human being, we we have this ability to teach other people, but if we're closed minded, we don't receive that message, right? Like
Hmm.
Ryan's a good friend of mine. If When Ryan and I talk, we bounce ideas back and forth. I learn something from Ryan. I don't know if he can say the same because I say some pretty off the wall wild things, but um, I learned so much from him, and I learned so much from every human being that I interact with. Because at the end of the day, it's about being quiet and listening and absorbing what that person has to say, even if they don't say it. You can
Yeah,
still absorb what they have to say.
absolutely. That's a good point. Well, then let's step back a little bit. So you said that Beyond the Veil
Mhm.
started after your other podcast.
Mhm.
What got you into podcasting?
Oh man, so I got sober and I started working a program in early 2020 pandemic, right before the pandemic, and I got sober and I felt like to a degree, after like 9 months, 10 months of my program, I felt like I was floating. I said, "What do I do next?" I started going and getting qualifications and certifications to be able to help others in their journey, and that was awesome. But I was like, I'm only reaching Anchorage, Alaska, right? Like, I'm only reaching Anchorage, Alaska, and what do I do now? Yeah, I do a lot of baking. I just made another cheesecake today, but um, I said I'm only reaching this amount of people. What do I do next? And I started going on TikTok and making TikToks. And I know everybody's like, "Oh, TikTok, it can be a very bad place, but
Yeah,
can also be a very beautiful place." And actually, that's where I met.
absolutely.
That's where I met Ryan. Is on TikTok. And so I would go on TikTok and share my story, part of my story, or I'd go on live and cook dinner, and people would join, and I would just conversate with them, just like we are
Mhm.
now. The human connection was the most powerful, and,
Yes.
and so I kept plugging, and I met this man named Dylan, and Dylan came in, and first thing he said was, "Dude, you have a great beard," and I was like, "Well, thanks." And then he was like, "Hey, I'd like to have you on a podcast, and we got on the podcast. Oddly enough, it was about spirituality and about like UFOs, some paranormal stuff. And afterwards, he was like, "Hey, do you have an idea?" He's like, "You got a voice for podcasting, and you interact really well." And I said, "Well, thanks, man. I do." And he was like, "You should start a show." And I made every excuse under the book why I couldn't do it. I said, "Oh, I don't have the microphone." I was like, "I don't have a good equipment." He's like, "Hey, you have a microphone?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he's like, "Okay, there you go. You got headphones?" "Yes." "Okay, cool." He's like, he's like, "I can point you in the direction of the streaming service I use, StreamYard." And I was like, "Okay." So I started setting everything up, and I believe in leading from the front. So I shared my story first, and I was terrified because everybody's going to see it. This is the first time that I'm putting my story out for the world,
Mm.
and I was terrified. But the reception I got back was so beautiful and astounding, and I didn't feel alone for the first time in a very long time. And after that, I started developing my style of interviewing and how I would interview people and humanize myself and allow my audience to decide what they believed and what they didn't. Because for me, I don't want to make a judgment on somebody.
Yeah.
That's not my place. To my place is to allow others to share their story and give them that platform to share their story. And no, May 2022 was when I started my show, and we've been going strong ever since.
And that's a good track record. I mean, because, it's so easy to start a podcast, but it's so hard to keep it going.
Absolutely. I took a month off this past month. This
Mhm.
last month has been wild, but I took a month off. I have like 5 months worth of content backed up. And I was just like, you know what? I need to take a break this month. I'll be back next month uploading everything. But I'm on the back end of 5 months worth of backed up content. And I'm start working on interviews again.
Nice. And people can go and they can watch and listen to these episodes and get caught up while you're putting the other stuff out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have Beyond the Veil on there as well. For some reason, I couldn't separate. So you can get everything you want right there. You can get Beyond the Veil and Recover Out Loud.
Yeah. And like I said, you've had some great guests on here that have a lot of great stuff to share. So um I have listened to some. I have not listened to any of the Recover Out Loud yet, but I'm definitely going to do that. But I've seen some of the Beyond the Veil, and I know we share some of the common guests. And
Yeah.
I saw your episode that you had with Big and Funky on there,
They are
and
wild and I love them.
I love those guys. We had them. I had them on my show, gosh, I guess it was a little over a year ago, and then they came and investigated the jail here
Yeah.
at Christmas time,
Yeah.
and to see them again with the positivity, I mean, they have such an unorthodox way of investigating. They don't take themselves too seriously, and they brought a fart machine to the jail. And believe it or not, they actually got responses to it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So it was, when they told me that's what they had, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But the interesting thing about a lot of our spirits here is they don't respond very well when you're sitting and interrogating them,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're cutting up with them, having conversation, especially when you're joking with them. They tend
Yeah.
to respond. So they absolutely were just all about those guys. And of course, nobody has a presence like Big Luke,
Yeah.
and of course maybe Vinny, but he's pretty funny. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They all have different characters. They're all a group of characters, and I love them all to death. And I remember when I was putting the graphic together, I'd seen that picture of Luke, and I was like, that has to be the center. That has to be the centerpiece, right? Like it cannot be anything but the center.
Yes.
And it was just it was awesome. It all came together, and this is an adventure that I love. I love to be a part of. I have a Christmas edition with my daughter. She actually lives in Clarksville.
Okay.
And she wanted to get on for a Christmas edition. I said, hey, let's do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So can you talk about any of the paranormal experiences that you've had in the past?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I think my very first paranormal experience was when I was 15 that I can remember. I'm pretty sure that I've had more before that. Brain damage does a lot to the memory. I lived in town here in Sharpsburg, and I slept in the basement. I'm terrified of basements. I hate basements. Me and basements just don't mix, and me and attics don't mix either. But which is pretty much every house, you know.
Yeah.
But I lived in the basement in this weird, like, little nook, and it was the middle of summer. We lived out in the mountains. I've never experienced the power completely drop in that house. Period. And then out of nowhere, it was you could hear it go,
Oh.
and uh, I got woken up in the middle of the night to that, and I heard the door to the basement open up, and my sister said, "Hey, can I come down? I'm terrified." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And it was just her, and she was coming down. You could hear a second set of footsteps following behind her, and she gets to the door. I opened the door, like it locks from the inside. I locked it from the inside, and the door shook for a solid minute straight. It was like French cabinet doors, and it shook for a minute straight, and I couldn't move. I stood there like absolutely mortified, and that experience made me absolutely completely terrified of that house. I can drive by that house now and have the memories of it. It scared me beyond anything I'm combat. I've been
Yeah.
in firefights. The paranormal stuff scared me when I more than any firefight I've ever been in.
Wow. So do you have any idea who it was or if it was related to the house?
I think it was related to my uncle. So my
Okay.
uncle, he's no longer with us,
Okay.
but he was not a great human being. He
Okay.
he he was a part of some pretty nasty organizations,
Okay.
and over time, I would find out later that he was haunted by what he believed to be a demon. But
Okay.
at the time, he lived in the house with us,
Okay.
and so there was a lot of happenings in the house and around the house around that time, and even afterwards, that were never there before he came. And so when I got a little bit older, I was able to chalk that up to it was him. And when I I joined the army and I came back home to visit, and I went back to the house. I told myself, when I grow up, I'm never going to come back to this house, and I did. And I visited him, and I, I stayed over the night, slept in the living room, and I heard footsteps just outside of the living room, where the dining room connects to another hallway. And I heard footsteps, and then the bathroom door opened up, and I was like, well, nobody should be awake. So I go and I typically investigate, and I door was closed. It wasn't open at all. It was closed, and nobody was awake. And they had this black cat, and the black cat was standing facing this doorway, and it was in attack mode, right? Like
Wow.
back arched. I couldn't see anything from the light coming in the carport, but the cat was standing there completely petrified. And then I got chills, and I got my hair standing up, and and I said that's the last time I'm ever going back into that house, and I haven't stepped foot into it.
I don't blame you. I mean, that's a horrifying
Yeah,
sounding experience.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It was terrifying. And later on, I asked. So my grandparents didn't live at the house at the time, or when I went back. So I ended up visiting them, and we got to talking, and I said, "Grandma, why did you move out of the house? Like, you are perfectly capable of staying there." And she said, "I couldn't stay there anymore. Whatever was attached to him was attacking us."
Wow. So
Yeah,
they
and
were
my
experiencing it too.
yeah, yeah, they were experiencing it too. And it was like this black cloud was over that house, and specifically over him. And when he left the house, um, nothing changed, right? And that's why I'm saying it's not the house;
Mm.
it was him, because nothing changed about his demeanor. It was always just darkness and just restricting. And when he moved in with a friend of his, the room that he was staying in caught fire without with no source. Like, they didn't rule out arson. They couldn't rule out electrical. There was no reason why that room should have caught fire, and it did. And then
Wow.
eventually, and I believe this, eventually it took him out. He died of an
Mm.
overdose, and nobody knew that he was an addict.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Did he ever, when he talked about things, did he ever talk about feeling haunted or
yeah,
feeling like something was attached?
yeah. Absolutely. He would tell me that, when, so essentially it got to the point where everybody left. Like, my aunt, his ex-wife, his kids left. The aunt took them with him, and it was just him. And
Mm.
I got one-on-one with him when we were out of the house, and I said, what's going on? And he said, whatever it is pinning me down in the middle of sleep, and I can't sleep. He said it literally was just destroying him systematically, slowly. And I felt really bad, but there was nothing that I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Wow.
that's why I don't like messing with like darker
Yeah.
entities, right? Like, I like the idea of investigating. I've never investigated, but I would like to. I mean, there's a paranormal team that does walks around town,
Mhm.
but I've always found myself drawn to darker things, and I think that
Hmm.
is because of the family past. But I try and like get myself to that point where I'm like, I'm not feeding into that because
Yeah.
it gets bad.
And it's easy to do. I know because being someone that's immersed, in the
Yeah,
paranormal on a daily basis, um, I'm fascinated by the darker side. Like you said, that's something, and some of the investigations I've done in the past have tended to be, few of them are darker locations, but you have, like you said, you have to be careful. And
yeah,
and it's rare. It's rare for it to be as common as what YouTubers and stuff
yeah,
try to make it be.
yeah,
It's more rare. But when it does happen, it's serious and it's bad, you
yeah.
know.
I was gonna bring that up. I've stopped watching YouTubers that go out and do investigations because at one point in my life when I was a little bit younger, I enjoyed watching it because it was like, oh man, what are they going to catch? It has to be
Yeah.
this, right? But the more that I'm immersed in like listening to other investigators, it's not as common as a lot of people
No.
think. And so I've really started watching I started watching some of these investigations and then I'm like that's it's not real,
Yeah.
right? And so like they're just doing it for the likes, they're doing it for the follows, they're doing it for all this other stuff. And now now they're taking the credibility away from actual investigators like yourself.
Yeah, they really are, and it's hard for, as a location owner too, because you're the one that has to clean up the damage. I often wonder, and you could probably answer this, someone who has experienced that darker side and seen the ramifications of somebody who essentially, had a dark attachment to them. How does that make you feel when you see these people that go into a place and are experiencing these benign things, but they're saying, I came face to face with a demon, you know?
Oh man, I turned the TV off, honestly. Like, and there's one show, and I think you know what I'm talking about. There's one show that I used to watch religiously when I was younger, and then the more that I started paying attention, the more I was like, it's dramatized, right?
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything for your audience, but getting ratings. That's all you're doing. You're getting ratings. You're becoming rich and famous off of other people's misfortune,
Hmm.
and I'm not okay with that. I don't
Yeah.
like that. And I'm one person where I love to help humans. I mean, you do
Hmm.
too. And I
Yeah.
think everybody with a soft spot loves to help human beings. And when I see somebody being taken advantage of, it upsets me. It really does.
Yeah, because these people, because you see it, it's the clickbait of YouTube,
Yeah.
and like you said, with the show that we all know that has since capitalized on it. I think that's what these YouTubers are going after as well. It's like if if some of these people truly came face to face and experienced and actually saw somebody who was haunted by something like this and eventually ended up passing away because of it, I mean, they would be ashamed of themselves, I would hope,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I when after a while of watching it and coming to my own conclusion and understanding, like I also thought they're going in and they're stirring something up
Yeah.
and then they're leaving. There's no resolution to it. They're not
Mhm.
trying to help the people that they're going to step into. They're just stirring. Sorry for my language, but they're
No,
stirring
you're fine.
stirring shit up,
Mhm.
and then they're leaving. That's like poking a hornet's nest and saying, "Oh, I have a vest on or I have a suit on. You deal with the problem." It's
Yeah.
not okay.
No. No. And Ronnie asks, he said, "Was your uncle an addict or did something possess him to OD, do you
I've
think?"
never I've never known him to be an addict at all. He was not a great person, not a good human being. I'm pretty sure something either oppressed him or possessed him. I didn't see him in his final days. I was in North Carolina when this happened when I was in the army. I was in North Carolina and I got a call one day. Hey, he's not alive anymore. I'm like, what happened? They say, oh, we found him overdosed, dead in his apartment. And it just didn't make sense to me because I've never known him to be, an addict.
Hmm.
And him and I were pretty close. Like, he's not a great human being, but he is
Yeah.
blood. And
Yeah.
so um, I took time to make sure he was okay, especially after everything that had been happening. And I didn't hear from him for a while, and it just got to this point where it's boom,
Wow.
there it is. So I don't think that it was that he overdosed on purpose.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story and that experience. I'm
Mhm.
sorry you had to go through that. That sounds horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. It it sucks, but I mean, it's understandable, especially if
Hmm.
he subjected himself to the certain groups that he was in,
Hmm.
and he subjected himself. I've heard stories from when he was younger and when my dad was younger, and they weren't good. They weren't good stories. There were some really
Wow.
rough times that were happening, not just mentally and emotionally, but spiritually as well. They were messing with things that were beyond their understanding, beyond the capability of them to understand. And so I think that their actions when they were younger caused this long curse to happen.
Yeah. Wow. And that's just a good example of choices
Yeah,
and how it can affect you in the long run.
absolutely, absolutely.
And Daryl echoes that sentiment, stirring stuff up and leaving it for someone else to clean up. That's the
Yeah.
worst part. And I think that's sometimes what people don't realize about residential cases and stuff is that it may sound fun and interesting that someone has called you in to check out this
Mhm.
weird experience that they have in your house, and it's like, okay, great, I can go in and I can check this out. But I think that a lot of thought and a lot of preparation needs to go in before you go in to that, because you need to be prepared if you're going in to essentially try to, I don't want to say debunk, but try to say, okay, let me determine if there's a logical explanation for this. um, that's fine. But if you actually find that things are happening and these people need help, in the case of this situation, if you had called an investigation team in, I'm sure they would have found that house to be extremely fascinating. But you've got to be ready to buckle down and essentially be this homeowner's lifeline to help them resolve this issue. It's not a one and done sort of thing. And like you said, some people, they're going to come in and they're going to stir things up and they're going to leave, and then you're the one that's left to deal with it
Yeah,
because it was a cool situation that they got to experience.
yeah,
It's not that on the other side.
absolutely. That's why I don't know if you probably know who he is because you're in the field, but Steve Shippey. I love watching Steve Shippey stuff.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that goes into a location and he takes care of the situation
Hmm.
at hand. He doesn't leave it for other people to clean up, and I like that.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
lot of respect for Steve.
Yeah. Steve's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have not had him on my show. He's someone I need to reach out to and
I'd
have
like
on
to
the
have him
show.
on mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
um so um so we'd pulled up, your shows and talked about the podcasts a little bit. Do you have any interesting things that are coming up that you can share with us?
absolutely. So I'm as I said, I'm training to be a shaman healer, training to be a life coach, as well as a medium. And one of my friends who's a podcaster is wild because we all of us are podcasters. We come up with these great ideas, these grandiose ideas, but came up with this idea, and it originally started where we wanted to do a podcasting convention where we got a bunch of podcasters together, shared ideas, threw them around, mixed them around, had a good time. Good way to connect and network. And him and I had a session. He's a hypnotherapist, and him and I had a session where I did a past life regression, and I don't know what happened.
Oh,
I don't know what changed, but the next time he messaged me, he said, "I don't want to do a podcasting convention. I want to do a healing convention." I said, "Well, what does that look like? He said that would be like us going out to a campground, or somebody having a plot of land that we could, pay a certain price to and set up and invite the community out. They come in and they start to learn the practices that we use. And I said, okay, well, what kind of practices? And he's like, well, you're gonna be a certified shaman. And I was like, yes. He was like, I'm a hypnotherapist. I said, yes. And he's like, we just need to get a few other people together. And it just so happened that I was talking to, or I was receiving Reiki, or I'm still am receiving Reiki from a friend of mine who's been practicing for 20 years. And I brought this idea up, and I said community, and she was like, I have been waiting to hear that word. And I was like, okay, all right, do you want to join? And she said, yeah. So we brought her into the fold. We have another lady in Florida. We have another lady that's in South Carolina. And what we want to do is just bring the community get together to raise the vibration of the earth, because the earth is in severe pain right now. Not just the earth, but humans as well are in so much pain. And if we raise our vibration, raise our energy, it can help change the world. And like, I'm going to put it like this. I know a lot of people don't believe in the woo-woo stuff. A lifetime of counseling and a lifetime of physical therapy for things that have happened to me while I was in the Army were never able to be healed. I took 2 sessions of Reiki, and I haven't felt pain since. Like,
Wow.
I have had spine issues that the doctors could not diagnose. And my Reiki healer picked up on that. And mind you, I wasn't a friend of hers when her and I first started doing these sessions. And she
Wow.
pinpointed my injury, where I got the injury, and how I got the injury without me even verifying it. And she helped heal my back. She helped heal my neck, heal my spine, heal my legs. And now it's to a point where we're focusing on the mental aspect of things and aligning and getting blocks out. And it's, like I said, a lifetime of counseling and physical therapy has done nothing and measures up to not a single grain of what I've gone through in this past year. And it's been a metamorphosis for me, and I love it.
Did you, so when you took the step to try Reiki, when you went into it, did you think this would help? Were you skeptical,
I
or
was a
was it like,
skeptic.
I'm just finally going to try something and see if something will help?
I was a skeptic, full-fledged skeptic. I said all this stuff is woo-woo, even though like I was in a training for shamanism, right? And I was even the reason I got into shamanism, and we can go into that later if you'd
Mhm.
like. But
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, I stepped into her practice area, and she was a friend of my sister, and I was like, oh, she's a friend of my sister. Hey, big deal. Me and my sister are really close, right? And my sister, I'm like, my sister is going to hype her up, right? Like that's what friends do for other friends.
Right.
And so I went in, and after I left that first session, I was an instant believer, right?
Wow.
And instantly changed my belief structure. And then the sequential, I would say the third or fourth session changed the way that I look at the world and the way that I view the world. I don't look at the world as I look at the world as human beings, right? But energy,
Hmm.
and how humans interact with other human beings and vibration, right? And I was explaining this to my significant other, explaining the difference of high vibration, low vibration. I said when you have some kind of deficit to your life that's low vibration, right? You go in, you don't want to go into work because work is tedious, and then everything sequentially in that day is bad. That's bad. That's low vibration. But if you walk into that scenario with a greater attitude and more centered, more focused, that's a high vibration, right? Because
Hmm.
not only in low vibration but high vibration, you're affecting everybody around you,
Yes.
and we don't even realize it. We don't even
Hmm.
realize who we affect, and we don't realize that somebody could be on the top of the mountain, and just our low vibration brings them right down. And so yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so looking at the comments over here, Sonia says she wants to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
And Ronnie says the Connor sisters will be a good fit for that. I gotta say, the Connor sisters, they have an energy about them. Things happen when they come to into an area. If you don't know the Connor sisters, definitely need to look them up. They would absolutely be a good fit for your show too,
Okay.
if you've not ever spoken with them. And Thomas says color vibration put off by people's energy. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Thomas is actually my soon-to-be brother-in-law.
Ah, okay. And James, I am feeling better. You missed my grand coughing intro there, but yes, I am definitely feeling better. Thank you. Yeah, so what got you started on your shamanic journey?
I had a friend that I invited on to one of my shows, one of my early shows that isn't around anymore. And it was called Extraordinary, where I highlight normal, everyday people doing crazy, wild stuff. And like I said, it's kind of like everything else I do, but it's it's different. It's not people with addiction or mental health disorders. And I had a psychic medium that said she just wanted to share her story, and I said, "All right, cool." And her and I became really close friends really quickly. And he told me, "You have shamanic healing abilities," and I was like, I don't believe in that, right? Like, I'm just a podcaster. I'm just a dude. That's fine. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. And I said, I don't believe in that. Like, I don't believe in all that crazy stuff. I called it crazy stuff. You know what I mean? And she was like, well, you do. And so we became friends over time. And when I lived in Alaska, right before I moved back home, she said, you need to leave Alaska. And she's like, something is about to happen and it's going to shock you and it's going to wreck your world. And then my ex-wife left. She just packed up her stuff and left. And I found out some things that were slightly less pleasant. And it rocked me. It rocked the foundation of everything I know. It rocked the foundation of my recovery, but I stayed sober. And I'm so proud of that. That's something I'm really proud of, because that was the hardest thing that I had to deal with in my recovery. And through that, she helped me. And then a few months later, she said, I'm going into surgery for some brain tumors.
Oh.
And I said, well, what does that look like? And she said, there's a 50% chance I'm not making it out, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not making it out. And I was like, well, you can't be saying that to me, right? Like, I need you. And she said, you don't need me. She said, you don't need me at all. She said, you have your shamanic healing powers, right? Like, you need to follow this path. This is your path. And I said, okay.
And you had no idea she was going through this?
No, none. She no inclination whatsoever. And I said, okay, well, how do I go about doing this? And she's like, the time and the place is irrelevant, but your teacher will come to you. Don't go searching out your teacher. And I said, okay. And she passed.
Oh, wow.
And she didn't make it out of surgery. And I only found out because I messaged her and I said, hey, friend, how are you feeling? And I got a response saying, I'm her mom. She didn't make it out of surgery. And it was just like a gut punch. But I said, this is my life goal now. This is my mission. This is my path. She told me exactly where I needed to be. She didn't have to, but she did. And now I have to follow this path. Like, I owe it to her and I owe it to myself to do this. And so that was March last year.
Okay.
And 2023. And this whole time I've podcasting, getting out there and just minding my own business, not looking for anything, not looking for anybody. I was looking for guests for Beyond the Veil. And this lady pops up and she said, I would love to share on your podcast, my experience. And I said, okay, what experiences do you have? Like, who are you?
Mhm.
Not to be mean, but who are you?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she said, I'm a medium. I said, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. I'm open to talk about that. And she said, I'm a shaman healer. And I just kind of perked my ears up. And she said, I have training and I train people to be healers. And I said, do you have a
Mm.
class? And she said, yes. And she said, I have a 3-day crash course. And then I have a full blown year long class. And I said, sign me up for the next one. And I got into that class. And within the first, I don't know, hour or two, I was sold. And I had made my mind up that moment that, like, if she offered for us to do this class, I'm going to do it. And it doesn't matter the amount of money that I have to pay to do this because I want to do this, right? Like this. And then at the end of the class, she said, hey, I'm signing people up who would like to join. And I was the first person. Boom. And every single class I'm in there, unless I got stuff outside of my control, but I'm always in there. And I always volunteer to share. I always do that because I need to heal the world. And I know that that's a lot to put on my shoulders, but it's like the ripple effect. If I help one person out, then that next person helps 10 people
Mhm.
out, and that those 10 people help 10 people in themselves. It's a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it, and that's what I want to give. I want to give the gift that I was given.
So, have you completed whoops, I froze there. Have you, completed your training, or are you almost
So we've completed every bit of the training. We're doing monthly check-ins to see how our training is going. Then we're going to start working on on building a business or a practice
okay?
on being a healer, and then afterwards we get a certification saying that we're certified in shamanic healing and certified in life coaching and certified in mediumship. And this class is wild. In my wildest dreams, I never would have imagined any of this, right? Like, so we did like a lot of life coaching, a lot of interacting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff that I've already done as a peer support specialist, where I
Mhm.
interact with people, but it goes deeper, right? It touches into inner child healing and parts healing and identifying and letting go of the trauma, letting go of the things that really hurt, and really start healing and moving forward. And then the shamanic healing starts where life coaching ends, and keep moving into that. And then we've done clearing of energy. We've done clearing of other people's energy. We've done a lot of hypnosis, a lot of meditation, moving into that. And then we did we did clearing of land, where we cleared spirits from lands when they needed to move. And it was crazy because we did it on Zoom
Mhm.
and we did it at the battlefield.
Oh, wow.
My With all of us together, my healer could see exactly where I was pinpointing out,
Okay.
and or my teacher could, and we all saw the same thing
That's incredible.
in our mind's eye, and like we all seen the same thing, and we were all interacting with these spirits, right? And it wasn't just Civil War soldiers, it was Native American too. And we were pulling energy out and clearing the energy out. It was just so beautiful. And the spirit of this Native American shaman comes to me and he says, um, if I go, can you promise to protect the land? I was like, oh, that's physically incapable for me to do that, man. I said, but what I can do is plant a flower, right? I can plant a flower because that is giving back to the land. That is giving back. You take something away, you have to put something back. And so I said I can plant a flower, and I told my Reiki healer that, and she was like, I just bought flowers today. I don't know why. I just bought flowers today, so let's go plant them. So
Wow.
we're picking up a day where we're gonna go plant flowers.
Wow. So, did you have any inkling that you had mediumship abilities?
No, I've practiced some things, but I wouldn't really call it mediumship abilities. I thought it was just something really cool. I've had friends come to me and I said, "Hey, there's something that I want to show you or talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know where this is coming from, but here." And I would see like this little image pop up, and it would just be like this small little image in the darkness. And the more that I talked about it, the more that things would get pulled into it, and it would create this picture. And when I would identify the picture or talk about the picture, I would get a name, and then I would be able to pull that name out, and it was spot on, deadly accurate. But I would only do it for friends, and then I started
Mm-hmm.
doing like subcon like hypnosis, where it was like guided meditation, where I would guide people along this path, and then some weird stuff would start happening in the actual like surrounding area, and I got scared, and I said I'm not doing that anymore. And then there was a group of friends that I used to hang out with, and one time I said I got to show you something. I don't know what it is, and we all joined hands, and one guy started like coughing. The other guy started throwing up water. The next guy could see something from above. Another guy could see as a stander by, and then I was kind of like the focal point. And it was me as a child dying, drowning in water. And I had
Okay.
never known this. And I called my mom and I said, "Hey, what is this?" She's like, "Yeah, you died when you were a kid." And I had no idea. And I explained the scenario to her and exactly what I seen, and she was like, "Yeah, that's exactly how it happened." And
Wow.
it was scary, but at the same time, back then I wasn't ready for it, right? Like
Yeah.
I was so terrified, and I think that a lot of human beings that I think every human being possesses an ability,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's all if you're ready to receive it and if you want to receive it and if that part of your brain is unlocked. And
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't ready to receive it at that time, and I took it for granted, and I thought it was just something really cool. Like one of the other things that I could do, and this sounds weird because I don't even know how to what to call it. Some people call it astral projection or whatever, but I
Mm-hmm.
was like physically awake. Like I was sitting here, I was meditating, and I had a friend with me, and I said, "I want to try something. I don't know if this is possible." And I said, "I want you to focus on my house back in North Carolina." And he had been to my house before. And like him and I could envision myself there. And we walked through and I seen this like glass on a table and I knocked it over. And I looked down the hallway and where the bedrooms were. And I went and
Mm-hmm.
opened up my daughter's bedroom and my daughter's mother's bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
opened it up, came back. And as we're standing there, I'm looking at the ceiling and there's like wolf prints on the ceiling,
Oh.
and he and my friend is seeing it too, and there's wolf prints like on the ceiling, and it leads to this rocking chair right in front of us. And when we look at the rocking chair, it's this old native man. He's wearing this blue and white striped shirt with these blue jeans and white shoes, like New Balances. He's just sitting there rocking, staring at us. And I said, "All right, we got to go." And so we backed out, and I called my daughter's mother later on, and she was like, "The weirdest thing happened." I said, "Well, what happened?" She goes, I had a glass of tea on the table, and it was knocked over." I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "And the bedroom door, our bedroom door and Emma's bedroom doors were wide open, and I shut them before I left." And I was like, "That really happened." And then the weirdest part of that though was, I came home from Afghanistan, and I was going to Thanksgiving dinner at her grandparents' house, and we go. It's in the sticks of North Carolina, and we get there, and I meet her grandmother for the first time, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome," you know. And she's like, "Oh, Grandpa is going to be coming out." Grandpa came out, and it was him sitting
Wow.
in that chair, and he looked at me, I looked at him, and it was like we had seen a ghost, like both of us, and we didn't say anything to each other, like not one word. Everybody walked outside, and mind you, the guy that I did this with was sitting right next to me too, like he came with us, and he seen him and he didn't say anything. And when everybody had left and it was just the grandfather and I said, "I know you." And he goes, "I know you too." And I said, "Well, what are you?" And he was like, "I'm a skinwalker,
Wow.
or I'm a shapeshifter skinwalker." I can't remember exactly the word verbiage I used. And I said, "Okay, well, If you are, what is your animal? And he said, wolf. And I was sold. And,
Wow.
and that was the moment that I said, I am too scared of this. I don't want to mess with this. You know what I mean? Because at that point it became real. At that point it wasn't games.
Yeah.
It wasn't fake. To me, at that point it was real, and I didn't want any part of it.
Do
And
you? Oh, so
go ahead.
sorry. Go on.
No,
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 go
go
on.
ahead.
I
Uh,
was just going to say, because you've got my mind going in so many different directions with this. Do you think that sometimes some of the stuff that we are experiencing as paranormal could be that's almost what you all were doing was like what remote viewing
yep.
maybe
Yep.
um sometime do you ever think that some of the stuff that we're experiencing could be somebody else doing that, like talking about the glass being knocked over and stuff, somebody slamming the cell door upstairs. It
Yeah.
makes me wonder if, I mean, obviously you had a connection to the house and
Mhm.
stuff, but it makes me wonder if sometimes some of what we're experiencing could be something of that nature.
It could be, but I mean, if the communication is there and somebody is actually um, talking, I would say like communicating with you and saying, "Hey, I don't even know if that's possible.
I
I
don't
really
know.
don't. I don't. Like I said, I don't know. Like I just recently started getting comfortable with doing hypnosis again, right?
Hmm.
Because I've noticed that a lot of what we do is intention based. If you have
Hmm.
the right intention, it's going to go well. But if you have a bad intention, a bad heart, bad cause, it's going to go exactly your way.
Yeah.
So when I was doing that, I want to see some wild stuff, and I got the wild stuff that I was asking for, but it was on a level that I wasn't ready for. And now I'm doing it with the intention of healing and it's helping people. And like on my YouTube, I put up a hypnosis, and um, a lot of people are like, "Man, that is awesome. It's helping me," and so that feels great. Um, but I think it's all intention based. And so to
Hmm.
answer your question, yeah, scientifically it could be possible, but I don't know.
That you nailed it with intention, because I think that's the same way with, talking about investigations and stuff. I will not go into an investigation if my intention is not, if I'm not in a positive headspace, if I've had a bad day. Um, I won't go into investigations that way. And I make sure my intention is of a positive nature, a goal of communication, because things really do go sideways if you're not careful with when you go in. And you can tell here when teams come in and they're not quite in a positive headspace. I
Hmm.
can tell when I go upstairs and I'm locking everything up at night, the energy is off. It's like, what have they done here? Somebody is not having a good day. And intention plays such a huge part, I think, in our lives, not just with investigation, but
Oh yeah,
just in general.
yeah.
And yeah, I can see where that would be a wild experience going in that way. It's like, okay, you want something kind of wild, we'll give it to you.
Yeah, and that's like how I've started structuring everything I do is intention based, right? Making sure that my intention is pure, and that
Hmm.
my heart is pure and my energy is pure. Because if I go into a session with somebody, or if I go into a class and I'm in a bad mood,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm not going to get anything out of it, and then other people are going to be able to under like sense that, right?
Yeah.
So I have to make sure my energy is clear. I have to make sure that my headspace is clear. And even if it's not, I can go into class and be like, "Hey, look, I'm not in the greatest headspace," and my teacher will be like, "Okay, let's talk about it." I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't want to talk about it, but let's do it. Let's do it. I'm your guinea pig. Let's go.
Well, it's just, it just goes to show that you have to be careful with who you surround yourself with, because, especially like in a corporate world environment, I can't tell you how many times I went into work, and if you've got somebody that's high drama or just negative, if you spend too much time around them, you're going to turn the same way. You can be the most positive person in the world, because one, it's easier to, have someone pull you down than to pull people up.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, if you're surrounding yourself with that, drama's going to start following you. Negativity is going to start becoming what you surround yourself with during the day. So you have to be really careful about who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on top of that too, like being able to clear that energy away from you, like return the energy that doesn't belong to you and pull that energy that does belong to you. And that leads into my next thing is like, I used to have, I couldn't go in crowds to save my life. I went, before I started doing my shaman training, I went to King's Dominion last year and I had a full meltdown because I could feel like everybody's energy and it felt like people were watching, like everybody was watching me. And it wasn't paranoia, right? Like I wasn't expecting something bad to happen, but it just felt like everybody was watching me. And I could feel everybody's bad moods, good moods, all this other stuff. And since then, like I've learned to clear my energy prior to going into that. And I've learned to clear my energy once I leave. I just went to a 2-day event in Philadelphia at the beginning of April, and it was 72,000 people a night.
Okay.
And I was able to be in that space without feeling anxious or feeling overwhelmed or like crowded or like people were watching me. It's because I did my preparation prior to going, and then when I left, I did my preparation. Whether it was me literally grabbing a crystal and focusing on it, or it was just me meditating for 5 minutes and then going, right? Like I'm able to clear my space, clear my energy, and then in turn have a good time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to get over here to the comments because we've got some comments that's coming through here. Sonia says that's some cool stuff. She's been training with a shamanic healer for the past few years. Nice. And let's see, James asks if you're going to be at the Gettysburg Bash. I know that's in July. He says he would love to meet you.
I'm actually like 45 minutes from Gettysburg, so more than likely I'll go.
You need to come. I know I'm going to have a table there for the jail and for Ghost Biker. Yeah, and I know James and them are coming up. A lot of folks coming up, so you got to come. And
I'll be there.
Great to meet you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thomas says Sean has tapped into the third eyes and really progressed with his ability since I've known him. Can feel his energy amplified and radiant. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was actually around me last weekend too. So that's
okay. Yeah. And Jeffrey, welcome for one. And he says, for me, I'm half believing in what y'all are talking about, but the other half of me is skeptical. We welcome everyone here. This is, like we've talked about before, this is kind of a safe space for people who, it doesn't matter what you believe. We welcome. I think it's good to have a skeptical side. You can't go in believing every single thing. Look at everything from, a critical lens, but also have an open mind that, anything is possible.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
And Bob says, that's a great question. How do you tell if you're experiencing a haunting or a curse?
I think, just my opinion, a lot of people like to diagnose a location, and a lot of people like to diagnose a location and say, this house is haunted. Yeah. But they don't remove the people from the house, right? Standard practice would be you remove the people from the house, then you get a baseline, and then you do your full-fledged investigation, and then you bring the people back, right? And I think that if you look at a scenario and you notice that there's no activity in the house, but there's activity around them, that's when you got a haunting. And a curse, a curse could be anything, really. There was supposedly a curse put on my family by my grandmother. Not by my grandmother, but was passed down starting from my grandmother.
Okay.
And there's a lot of things that line up and match, right? Like the organization. I'm not going to say the organization my uncle was in, but you couldn't see it. You couldn't see anything but his eyes, right? And my dad, very dark soul too. He when he would get angry, his eyes would turn black.
Oh.
And then when before I started stepping into this, when I was doing that stuff, people would say when I got angry, like my eyes would change and my facial features would change. So it's really looking at the coincidence. I wouldn't even say coincidences, but the similarities in the bloodline, right? Or in where that curse is passed down from, and then really taking it and saying, okay, like this is a curse, and then finding out where that curse originated at, and then trying to figure out how to break it. I mean, you can break curses. There's abilities now that we have that you can break curses, but also looking at the haunting. Haunting, I would like to think a haunting is a location, not a person. A curse is a person, not a location.
That's a great answer. Great question, Bob, and great answer, Sean.
Really good.
Let's see here. Thomas says, I have the ability to see them, but I learned some can attack or attach to you, even with good intention. It's the fact that they know you can feel or see them. So please protect yourself. Yeah.
Facts.
Good words of advice. Let's see. And Jeffrey says, I hope y'all are having a great day. Just wanted to say that for this positivity in this place. Absolutely. And Kim says, Sean, you are a beautiful soul. I look forward to hopefully meeting you in Gettysburg.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, Sean, we definitely need to have you back on to talk about this healing event whenever you all get the details on that, because I think there's a lot of people that's going to be interested. Is this something, and I know you're probably early in the process of planning this, is this something you're hoping will kind of travel to different places, or are you just going to kind of start on a centralized place?
No. We want to take it across the country. We want
nice.
Essentially what we want to do. It's like the game of throw a dart, and that's where we're going, right? And so I think our first event is going to be in Florida. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what we're talking about right now. We have a spot in Virginia or West Virginia that we're going to be going to, and I know people all across Tennessee.
Gotta come to Tennessee.
I'm actually going to be driving. I'm going to be in Tennessee next month. I'm visiting my daughter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I mean, because of podcasting, I've met so many people from across the country and across the world. And so it could literally, like, we were joking around saying, hey, we're going to make it to Costa Rica. And then my shaman healer was like, oh, Costa Rica? I have a friend that has a practice in Costa Rica. We're like, dude, what? What?
Just name your place.
Pick your place. I want to go to Ireland.
There you go. Now just wait, and like in 2 days, someone is going to say, well.
Yeah, I fully believe in manifestation. And it's been insane. The manifestation that has been happening is not anything. I'll say it. I'll say things, but it's like starting to become like really strong. I said I'm going to be debt free by this year, and as of 2 days ago, I'm debt free, and I got approved for a VA home loan, and my finances are starting to look okay. And I at the beginning of this year, my significant other was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. I said, it's going to happen. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And every time she would start to say that, I'm like, it's going to be okay. We just have to trust that the universe is going to provide what we need. And it literally was like one door opens, one door opens, one door opens. You step through, and then that next door opens, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And I fully believe in the power of manifestation, and I keep saying that. And I said that to people in our group that we're starting. I said, if we manifest it, it's going to happen, right? If we say that we want this and we keep saying it, boom, it's going to happen no matter what.
I love it. Like I said, keep putting that positivity out, Sean, because we need more of that. And as James says, and the beard is badass.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. I've been growing it for 4 years.
I love it. I love it. And guys, like I said, you definitely need to go check out Sean's podcast. I'm going to put these up on the screen here. On the Spotify link, you can get access to both the Recover Out Loud podcast as well as the Beyond the Veil. Look at there. There's a Ghost Biker podcast.
There she is.
Yeah, look at that. And then also, if let me pull the next one up, you can also go to his YouTube channel where he also has some other on there. It is the Beyond the Veil. Do you have am I missing any other links on here?
No.
Because I couldn't remember if you had a the Recover Out Loud on.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that I add that. The good thing is you can go on there and you can do a Google search of it. What is the best way if folks want to reach out to you to find out more information?
Facebook Messenger. I'm always open. If I don't respond, I will get right back to you. I'm very open. I talk to a variety of people. You can hit up my personal page. I'm more active on my personal page than my other pages. But I'm just open. And this isn't the person you see on screen is the person you're going to get through Messenger. And then if it is a crisis, just say, hey, look, and I send my number out so that people can reach out and get a quicker response.
And, I love how you're really tying it all together, because the paranormal and the healing process, all of this is related, and it all goes hand in hand, regardless of, I know there's so many facets to all of it, but it really goes hand in hand. And I love how you're tying it together. I've really enjoyed hearing about your journey, and, I just can't wait to see where you go with it. I mean, you have a great plan, and I've learned so much more about you tonight than I knew in the beginning, and I love that. And I just think you're a wonderful human being, and I can't wait to see how you go forward with all of this.
Thank you, Miranda. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, we're definitely going to have you come back on as you do more planning of this. And again, folks, you need to go check out his pages, binge on his episodes there. You'll get to hear about some other great individual stories, because Sean is doing an amazing job of creating a safe space for folks to share their story. And Ronnie asks, I'm going to make sure I get to this question here. Ronnie says, have you ever done an event at Hanover Tavern or Henricus?
I have not. I have not.
I think that's not too far from your area.
No, Hanover's actually not that far.
Yeah. So I know Steve Dills, I think, does a lot of events there. And, or I think he's actually somewhat, correct me if I'm wrong, Ronnie, but I don't know if he's on the board there or if he's over all of the paranormal stuff at Hanover Tavern. But I know they do a lot of cool stuff there. And Steve is another great person to have on the show as well, if you've not ever talked to him. So
absolutely.
But thank you again for coming on and sharing with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Sister Young.
Absolutely. I think we've got to be kin. I think, because we have to be. There's not a lot of Youngs out there, so we.
No, there's not.
But thank you all so much for watching tonight and your questions and comments. Again, go support our content creators, because it's a lot of work putting this content out, and a like, a share, and the support goes a long ways. Thank you all so much for spending time with us. Time is one of the most precious things, and I know that you have a lot of choices of how you can spend your time on Thursday night. So I appreciate you spending it with us. Next week, we are going to, let me just double check my calendar here. I want to make sure I'm not saying it wrong. I am waiting on a confirmation for a specific guest for next week. So I'm not going to say just yet who that might be. We're just waiting on that confirmation. But we will be live at 7 p.m. Eastern on the historic Scott County Jail Facebook page and YouTube channel for the Jailhouse Informant, where we'll be talking to the old Charlotte Jail out of Canada. We're going to be continuing that series, and we will be back live here at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Ghost Biker Garage. So I hope that you all will check us out then. So, and Sally says good night too. She's already crowding me here, saying that she needs her nighttime treats. So, so until next weekend, I hope everyone has a great week. Take care, everyone.